first, I'm going to welcome in my colleague, Isaac Trotter. He's going to continue a conversation with me that began last week when we started to talk about Cooper Flagg and Joni Broome and the battle to be the college basketball player of the year. Trotter, welcome in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So this week, we want to widen that discussion and kind of create a ladder that we can update throughout the course of the rest of the season. So, Trotter, you recently published your top 10 Player of the Year candidates. We take a look at what that's going to look like. But what I want to ask you specifically, as you look at this list, you've got Flagg, Broome, Cam Jones, Braden Smith, Eric Dixon, Chaz Lanier, PJ Haggerty, Javon Small, Kasparis Yakachonis, and Elijah Martin. My question to you, Trotter, is who on this list is trending in recent weeks?
Yeah, for me, I'm really looking at what Braden Smith is doing at Purdue. This was a guy that had a lot of narratives around him of like, are you just propped up by Zach Edey? And he has put those to rest. Like, he is putting on a point guard masterclass right now lately for a Purdue team that looks every bit the part of a Big Ten title contender. And has one of the most elite pull-up jumpers in the sport. He is unbelievable in pick and rolls with his little like nifty pass in the corner pocket. Like he just does everything right now offensively. And no player in college basketball is scoring more points per game off pull-up jumpers than Braden Smith. And so it's like he can just kill you in every which way. Drop coverage, he's got it under control. You want to play at the level, he's got it under control. You want to blitz him, he's got it under control. He's seen every one of these coverages, and he's been unbelievable. He would be my pick for Big Ten Player of the Year if the season ended today. And he is certainly going to put himself in the conversation for National Player of the Year. I don't know if he can catch Cooper Flagg and Joni Broome, but he's going to be in that conversation all year long.
Yeah, this race for National Player of the Year may just end up being a race to be first-team All-American, but if Flagg continues to distance himself, but we will see. I will add this about Braden Smith. What strikes me, you talked about the transition in terms of style of play last year to this year. It's hard to believe, but Purdue is actually playing at a slower tempo this year without Zach Edey than they did last year. With regard to Smith in particular, what I find impressive is the fact that he overlaps volume with efficiency. What I mean by that is he's putting up 15 points, 9 assists, and 5 rebounds. He's doing that against less than 3 turnovers per game. He's shooting over 40% from the three-point line. So while defenses are keyed on him on a nightly basis, and they are playing a rather slow style that allows the opposing defense to set up, he's still getting it done in every which way. One last note about Braden Smith. He is on pace to finish as the leading assist maker in the history of college basketball if he were to stay for all 4 years. All right, Trotter, I'm going to go back to you. I'm going to ask for another recent riser on this Naismith watch list, if you will.
I'm blown away by Javon Small from West Virginia. He is playing like one of the best point guards in that transfer portal class, and his value to West Virginia, it's hard to find a player who's more valuable to his own team. Think about this. West Virginia averages 72 points a game. Javon Small is creating 36 of those 72 every single game, scoring or assisting or whatever. Like, think about that. Like, it's mind-blowing stuff that he's doing. One of the elite pick and roll scorers in college basketball, outstanding in transition, can make threes off the bounce and off the catch. Like, and this West Virginia roster has no business being this good. They lost Tucker DeVries. They've had this is a rebuild. This is supposed to be your first year of a rebuild. Javon Small will not let that happen. He's so good that he's just elevating everybody else on this group. He has been utterly phenomenal. I've been honestly just like so stunned by how competent this West Virginia team is, and Small is a huge part of that. Like, it'd be hard for me not to have him as a first-team All-American if the season ended today. And West Virginia needs to keep winning, but he would also be my pick for Big 12 Player of the Year, and nobody was putting him in the conversation for that in the preseason.
No, I can't co-sign that more enthusiastically. I don't know that there's a player in America that is more important to their team than Javon Small is to West Virginia. You talked about how they're overachieving. You talked about how they are playing without Tucker DeVries, and Small is stepping up in every way possible. He puts a ton of pressure on the rim. He's got gravity behind the arc. He takes about 7 threes per game. He's a great point of attack guy on the defensive end. And I just like the fearlessness, the competitiveness with which he plays. I mean, you can say that those sound like hyperbolic, but when you watch that game, when you watch West Virginia play, it is very clear who the alpha is on that floor. Couldn't agree more. He is certainly one of the best guards in college basketball. Trotter, as we do every week, we are going to start to break down some of the biggest games of the weekend, and we are going to start with a matchup of two of college basketball's best teams and best defenses, and I'm talking about when Houston visits Kansas. What do fans need to know about this one?
Well, this one's going to be a war like they always have been. And for me, I'm really looking at Hunter Dickinson's decision making. He is going to have to be outstanding against this Houston defense that loves to trap the ball screens. He's going to get those opportunities in the middle of the floor, and he has to make 0.5-second decisions. It's either I'm finding that open shooter in the corner, I'm finding an open cutter who's cutting to the rim, or I'm taking those little floaters that he can have available in those split-second chances. Houston's defense has been so good this year at funneling the ball into decision makers' hands that don't want to have it in their hands. Dickinson's a little bit of like that chess piece that not many teams have big men that can pass like he can. He is going to be enormous in this game. Injuries are also a big one to watch in this one. Emmanuel Sharp has an ankle injury. We'll see if he can come back and play. KJ Adams for Kansas has a shoulder injury. Their defense, Kansas's defense, without Adams on the floor has been a little bit of a concern so far. Like Bill Self said, like, hey, we got into survival mode against Kansas State last week. Houston's offense has started to really find its stride a little bit. They don't take many threes, but they do a terrific job of the right guys take them. It's Sharp, it's LJ Cryer, it's Terrence Arsenault, it's Milos Uzan. All those guys are shooting over 38% from three-point range this year. And I think it's also fascinating, too. We talk a lot about Houston's shot diet. They take the second most non-rim twos in college basketball, but they make up for it by winning the turnover battle and killing you on the boards. If they control those two areas of the game, it doesn't matter what type of shots they take. They're going to win the game, even on the road, even in a really, really tough environment. So those are the things I'm watching with this game, and it's going to have huge Big 12 championship implications.
I want to dig into one point you made there, and that is Houston's prowess on the glass. I think this is somewhat counterintuitive because they are very literally the best offensive rebounding team in the country, but they're a little bit more susceptible to pressure in terms of controlling their defensive glass. So you mentioned Hunter Dickinson and his passing. I think his ability to get on the offensive glass, along with KJ Adams and the rest of Kansas's front court, that could be a swing variable in this game. The other variable I will give you is whether or not Kansas makes threes. If you dig into Houston's analytics, opposing teams do not shoot a good percentage from behind the arc, but they get a decent amount of volume. If Kansas can make threes and go to the offensive glass, the Fog could be a very happy place on Saturday, but we will see. 6:30 p.m. on Saturday. A couple hours later, or probably right after that one is over, at 8:30 p.m., we've got another great game, and that is Tennessee at Auburn. The big storyline in this one is obviously whether or not Joni Broome is going to play. Jeff Goodman just reporting that he is listed as questionable by Bruce Pearl. And Trotter, to me, this feels like the game where Auburn really needs their big fella back.
No question, because getting a layup in a game like this is going to be really hard. Tennessee's rim defense is elite. Auburn's rim defense is also elite, whether Richard Broome is on the floor or not. And they need his physicality to kind of barrel through Igor Milicic or Felix Okpara and get easy looks. So if he can play, that's a huge boon. I think this game, though, is kind of one in the margins, especially for Tennessee, because I think Auburn's going to do a terrific job of taking away Chaz Lanier's attempts. I think you're looking at Jordan Gainey against drop coverage. Can he give you a little bit there? And can this Zakai Ziegler, Felix Okpara pick and roll game continue to progress? Early in the season, they looked a little out of sync. Lately, they've been terrific. They were awesome against Vanderbilt, and Okpara had a season-high 16 points. If Tennessee just has to find a way to manufacture points in other ways, because I think this Auburn defense is going to be all over Chaz Lanier and limiting his attempts.
Going to be very interesting because Chaz Lanier has had 10 or less points in 3 of his last 5 games. So to your point, if he can't get going, how does Tennessee manufacture offense? All right, the main event on Sunday is a battle of Big Ten teams that have similar philosophies on roster construction, and that is kind of a throwback to post alignment. We're talking about Maryland and Indiana. Trotter, what should fans be watching for in this one?
Yeah, this one's going to be really fun. I love what Maryland is building right now. Some of the conversation about, they struggle on the road. Like, they played well on the road. They just lost some games to Oregon and Purdue. Now they bounce back. They beat Illinois on the road, kind of get that monkey off their back. And I think Jacoby Gillespie, this is his time to really shine. You know, the battle of the front courts is going to be the main storyline, but Gillespie has been one of my favorite transfers in the country out of Belmont. He has been a drop coverage killer. You look at some of the recent game logs, lead guards against Indiana have torched them especially in that drop coverage. So Indiana has to be super dialed into the scouting report, cannot let Gillespie get going. Because if he does, I think Maryland has a ceiling that very few teams can touch, because they got an elite point guard, two awesome bigs. Rodney Rice and Selton Miguel are great spot-up shooters. Maryland's got a chance to be a really, really special team this year, and they started to show that this week against Illinois. And if they can keep that up against Indiana, I think the national narrative around them is going to really change.
That Maryland-Indiana game will take place Sunday, noon Eastern time. That will be live on CBS, so you're going to want to check that out.